Welcome back to Everyday Adventures in Cooking with Rick. Today we're doing something different. We are on the road at my brother's house. This is Rob, and we're going to be cooking some bourbon bacon risotto. He cooks risotto a lot, really good at it. Both of us learned to cook from our mother. She loved to cook. She was a great cook, and she loved to experiment. That's one of the things, right? She cut our recipes all the time.
All the time.
Always wanted to try new things. Obviously ate a lot of Italian food, but she would try anything. So anyway, we're going to get right to this. We're going to cook some risotto. So Rob, why don't you go over the ingredients for this?
Sure. All right, so risotto obviously is a rice dish.
Yeah.
And this is an Arborio rice, which is an Italian short grain rice. This is what they traditionally use for risotto because it is a chewier, creamier texture to the rice.
It's got a lot more starch, so it makes it
a lot more
creamier,
starch,
right? Yeah, that's where the creaminess comes from.
Right. And then white wine, bourbon we're putting in this one. That's not a key ingredient of risotto. Shaved Parmesan, salt, pepper, and then we're doing bacon and mushroom, and I have some shallots, garlic, and pink peppercorns, I should say. I'm sorry.
We'll give you the amounts of these
As we go.
in the comments or something. All right. So risotto is something you have to kind of slow cook, right?
Exactly, yes.
And add the broth. So we also have broth, right? So what?
Right, I'm sorry, so we have vegetable broth. So the basic risotto I'm doing, this is a risotto that my friend Kathy taught me, and I'm making it a little less healthy, but it's generally a healthy
it's
risotto.
healthy. It's healthy.
It's healthy, right? It's your basic risotto is the shallots, garlic, olive oil, rice,
And
broth, and then the cheese. Right. So that's risotto. So after you know how to make risotto, you can make any kind of risotto you want. I do it with bacon and lobster. That's one of my favorites. Green peas.
Seafood risotto is real popular.
Yeah, seafood risotto. You can do chicken, bacon, whatever. So you can put anything basically in your risotto.
Good. So how do we start?
So the first thing we need is olive oil. If you can hand me that bottle. So I gotta heat the pan a little bit. So what you really want is a nice large flat bottom skillet, right, and a flat edge to stir, because risotto you're cooking constantly. It's a 30 to 40 minute process, and it's a constant stir. Because what you're doing is you're cooking the risotto, the rice in the liquid, and you're getting the rice to absorb the liquid. So here you're not boiling rice, you're slow cooking it and getting the rice to absorb all the liquid.
Because you want to get a lot of liquid in there.
Correct. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to let this pan a little bit heated, but we're going to put a little olive oil into the pan. You just coat the bottom of the pan.
And it's funny with the ingredients, I always say the same thing. A lot of times I cook, I don't know the amount of ingredients, but we'll try and list something.
This is going to be quite a bit of risotto, but to me, if you're going to go through this, you'll want the leftovers. So there's no reason I would ever cook less than 2 cups of rice. But obviously, as we go through the measurements, you can cut everything in half. So I have one, if you're not familiar with shallot, so shallot is a form of onion, or in the onion family. It's a little sweeter than an onion. It's got less bite, so it's nice for a dish like risotto. So I had one shallot, and we're going to start with the shallot. You just get that.
And I always tell people, I always cook my onion first because you don't want to burn the garlic.
Exactly.
Because you get a bitter taste out of it. So.
Exactly.
Well, see, so I wasn't wrong.
No, you're not wrong.
Because
you want to get the onion a little bit translucent.
I did shepherd's pie, and I cooked the onion first and then the garlic. And a friend of mine says, "You didn't put your garlic in first. You always put your garlic in first." Now, he's Irish.
It's crazy. It's crazy. The last thing you want to do is burn your garlic. You're just going to get your onion in there for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. So you just want to cook the onion until it's soft.
So we are going to put in, as I said, the bacon. This was a pound of bacon that I had pre-cooked and chopped. The other ingredient is the mushrooms. So those are baby Portabello mushrooms, 16 ounces. So if you just give those a rough chop.
Too big? All right.
Well, I'm also going to pre-cook those.
I'm the sous chef tonight.
He's the sous chef. We're going to do a rough chop on the Portabellos and cook those separately here.
All right, I can do that. I can chop.
Because once you get the risotto done, you're really putting the other ingredients in kind of right at the end.
Right. And we're adding a little bourbon into the chefs as well.
We do want to have the bourbon infused in the chefs.
Exactly.
So, yes.
It does help with the cooking.
It can't hurt. Let's put it that way. All right. So cameraman, you see these shallots cooking, right?
Can you zoom in on that?
When you get after you cook the shallot, the onions, you can obviously use an onion as well. But after you get that cooked a little bit, you see they start to get a little translucent. because the garlic you don't want to, I'm sorry.
Can't really see down. I'm sorry.
I'll do that when we're getting there. So, we don't want the garlic to cook a lot. This was 4 cloves of garlic.
4 cloves.
So it's 2 cloves per cup. You can never have too much garlic, right Josh?
No, you cannot.
All right, so we have
Good.
our garlic mixed in with our shallots. And then we're gonna put the rice in. We wanna get the rice cooked for a couple minutes in the oil.
Yeah, because you want to toast that rice.
You do wanna toast the rice a little bit. So the rice is in.
And again, like you said with the risotto, you don't like mushrooms, don't put them in.
Right.
If you don't want bacon,
Your basic
you don't
risotto
have to.
here, and you've seen most of the risotto recipes call for chicken stock. I always use vegetable stock because I'm not cooking chicken. It's a great chicken side dish, then you can do chicken stock.
Yeah.
I always do vegetable stock. Your flavors are going to be your garlic, onions,
Right.
seasonings, and whatever your other flavors are that you're adding. So again, you do olive oil, garlic, shallot, rice, wine, and stock, and that's risotto. And then you add the cheese at the end.
I've been using vegetable stock for most of my recipes now instead of chicken stock. Because I started realizing, what's the point of the chicken stock?
What's the point of chicken?
Yeah,
I'm not making chicken.
It doesn't really taste like it.
I
I'm
want
making
my
chicken soup.
bourbon bacon risotto to taste like chicken.
You want me to go over?
Hey, how come your chicken's not enough?
Oh, because I forgot.
We're having a side dish of chicken here.
We are also,
Let me, like-
the last time I made this for friends, I did these bone-in chicken breasts with this risotto. It's perfect. So these are bone-in breasts, the best way to cook chicken. I always use the bone-in breast. Everything's always better when you cook it on the bone.
The cameraman wanted it better,
So-
so I picked that up.
It should take
So-
about as long to do the chicken as to do the risotto. It'll start at a 425-degree oven with these.
Are we doing 2 recipes tonight?
Apparently. You're the one who brought up the chicken.
Well, no, because when it's time to eat and the chicken's not done, we're going to be like, where's the chicken?
So it should be about 40 minutes for the chicken, but I'm gonna go 20 minutes at 425 and then 20 minutes at 300 on the bone-in breasts.
So I'm starting to put those onions in.
So once you've cooked the rice for a couple minutes, toasted the rice in the pan, the first wet ingredient is gonna be wine. So this is 1.5 cups of white wine. You prefer to have a dry wine, this is a Pinot Grigio. So first we're gonna get the rice to absorb the wine.
That's good TV right there.
That's good TV, exactly. Right, so you want this, I'm sorry, the heat, I should have told you, is medium low. Again, you want the rice to absorb the liquid, you don't want to boil the rice. So this is where you get into a constant stir until whatever liquid is in the pan gets absorbed into the rice.
So that's the thing with risotto. Now you're going to let this absorb for a while. This is probably going to take a few minutes for that wine to absorb before we add the stock. And you're not adding any other ingredients yet.
Not any other ingredients yet. I'm going to get the salt and pepper in here now.
Okay.
Before I add any more stock, but other than that, no, you're not putting in your cheese or your bacon or anything.
Right.
Like that.
So you're going to salt and pepper
You're gonna
this.
salt and pepper it.
And
So this is 2 teaspoons of salt, it's like a teaspoon per cup of rice.
so we had 2 cups of rice, so we got 2 teaspoons of salt,
And this is a little over, it's about a teaspoon of black pepper.
a teaspoon of pepper. All right.
It's actually a lot more, so I'm gonna
People yell at me because I'll say like a teaspoon of cumin and it's like a tablespoon.
right?
I'm heavy on the spice usually.
I'll call it a teaspoon.
There you go.
Yeah, so, obviously with any recipe, you season to taste after you put in your basic. So your basic would be 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of black pepper.
So we're going to let this cook till that wine is absorbed, and then we're going to start adding the stock. So we're going to take a break for a minute, so you don't have to listen to us anymore. Excuse me, cameraman. So if you wouldn't mind, we're going to take a break now. We'll be back in a minute.
The other thing that we're adding to this particular risotto recipe is the bourbon. So this is a half cup of bourbon that we're going to also absorb into the rice before we start adding the stock. You know, the key with the alcohol being your first liquid is that you want to cook off the
You
alcohol.
got to get that alcohol taste out of it.
Right. So it has to cook the longest.
Yeah. Whenever you cook with wine or bourbon or any kind of alcohol, the idea is to cook that alcohol out of there. Otherwise, it has a weird
If you
taste.
put it in near the end, it will be terrible.
In your drink, you want to taste it, but in
This,
your risotto, you don't want
you
to
don't
taste the
cook
alcohol.
this.
Yeah. So our mushrooms are still cooking. Now we've got the bourbon in there, so we gotta let that bourbon absorb. So we're gonna let that cook for about a minute. We'll be right back.
All right. The one other thing that I'm adding, I noted to you before, and this is for this recipe, the pink peppercorns. So if you're not familiar with these, they're not actually peppercorns. They're a dried fruit from a Peruvian plant.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And
He wants you to show it. Get it close up.
I'm sorry. These are the pink peppercorns. I found that out when I put them in a pepper grinder. I'm like, why wouldn't they grind? They're very dry. They're just a dried fruit, so you just.
Oh, okay.
But they have a peppery flavor, but they also have a little heat.
Okay. Cool.
So this will be our heat in this dish. They're not, and not much heat at all, believe me.
Right.
This is more sweet hot, so you can just crush them into the dish.
So the bourbon has been absorbed. The wine's been absorbed. Right?
Correct. So now we're just going to start. What you do, you have your broth should be hot, and now I'm going to turn this down because I realized how hot it is.
I don't know which one this one.
It's the same stove that you have, by the way. Ow. So we are going to add the broth one ladle at a time, and then let each one absorb. Because I'm just starting, it's a little hot, I'm going to put 2 in, but don't do that. You're going to do 1 at a time. Because we've been talking more than cooking.
Yeah, so that's what happens. So that's the thing, you're adding this slowly, right?
And when I say stir, obviously you just want to make sure you move the rice around and absorb. If you start getting a little crazy, you're going to have.
But you also don't.
He's a messy cook, I'm a very clean cook, it makes me nuts. So, but you don't want risotto flying out of your pan, so.
I guess we're the odd couple.
You're out of your couple.
Looks like the mushrooms, anytime you cook mushrooms, when the liquid is gone, basically they're done. You're just cooking them down. So these look pretty good. So I'm going to turn the heat off on the mushrooms. You're welcome. So now with the risotto, this is kind of here's the thing, when you're doing a whole dinner and you're doing risotto, you can be cooking other things. You just got to come back to it, stir it every couple minutes, make sure it's not sticking to the bottom, add your liquid a little bit at a time. So for the 2 cups of rice, how much liquid do you think you're going to add?
So that was 2 boxes of vegetable stock that are 32 ounces.
So that's 64
ounces of
half a
vegetable
gallon.
stock.
Wow.
So your liquid was 1.5 cups of white wine, a half cup of bourbon. So if you were doing just white wine, you can do 2 cups of white wine, and then your 64 ounces of broth.
Okay.
So that's why 2 cups of rice is going to fill this pan completely. You have to make sure you have the right size pan and a very large skillet. And if you don't have a very large skillet like this, and you're going to make 1 cup, you're fine, or you can use 2 skillets. If you have 2 people, you can be doing 2 skillets.
We're from a big family. We always cook way too much. It's just the way
This
we
is
are.
so good, you're going to want it left over.
All right, so we're going to keep doing this, adding a ladle at a time, and you're not going to add any other ingredients
That was
yet.
no ladle, that was my knife.
You're gonna, that was a dad joke. So you're going to keep adding this a ladle at a time.
Correct.
As it absorbs and you see there's no liquid in it, you keep adding more, and that's how you do it. So we're going to take a break for a minute, and we'll be back.
Just keep doing that.
Just keep doing that. We'll be right back.
Okay, so we're at about 30 minutes. We've got most of the liquid absorbed. We just tested the rice. You can see it's just tender, right?
But it needs just a little bit more, right?
There's a little bit more, and it hasn't absorbed all the liquid yet.
Yeah. So we're almost out of liquid. We've done most of the liquid. It's been 30 minutes.
64 ounces plus the wine, plus the 2 cups of alcohol.
It needs more bourbon.
So the cameraman, who's also a chef, someday, actually my son is filming tonight, and he is
Stir fry.
world renowned
Eater.
for his stir fry. So someday we'll have him on
The apple
his
doesn't
famous
fall far
stir
from the
fry.
tree. So at this point, just put the rest of that liquid in the pan. We'll just pour it in. So there's just a little bit left. We're going to pour it into the pan and let it absorb. Because now we are going to get to the good stuff. Now, I don't know why the planning was so poor, because I was planning all morning. No, because I've only had half of a drink. But,
I need more.
Oh, you need more? Well, you can wait. I forgot the green peas, and I always like to put green peas in the risotto because I love green peas, but they also look good.
So you just don't have it?
I'm gonna check the freezer. But we're gonna put, so, again, this was a pound of pre-cooked bacon, and if you want to be really risque, you can put a little bit of bacon fat, which I did. I forgot to tell you. And we also have the sauteed baby portobello mushrooms that were coarsely chopped. So I'm going to put those into the pan now and incorporate them. This will be, I've tested this on live humans, This will be one of the best side dishes. I did it with those bone-in chicken breasts. Amazing. Perfect, look at that. So, I'm cooking like Rick now. This is why you have to stir very slowly.
Look, that's why they make washcloths. If you spill a little bit, don't worry about it.
I know, it makes me crazy.
I'm the same way. I love peas, and I put it in a lot of stuff because I don't know why.
You get a little sweet element in a dish like this too.
Yeah, and a little color.
What color exactly? So then you get your little
So you have
mushrooms
the bacon in there, you got the
bacon's in there, the
mushrooms
mushrooms in there. So again, a pound of each. Well,
That was
mushrooms
a pound of
are,
bacon?
yeah, those were, that was a 16-ounce package of the baby bellow sliced. And that was a pound of bacon pre-cooked. A little bit of bacon fat in the pan when we were off camera, because why not? So again, if you took out the bourbon, the bacon, the mushrooms, and the fat, right?
Then I wouldn't
Then I wouldn't eat it, right? But that would be your basic risotto. And again, without the bourbon, I've done this with lobster meat and bacon, which was with a filet mignon, so it's perfect surf and turf kind of thing. You can just do the vegetables and have a
Well,
vegetarian
for me,
dish.
I just do regular, just plain risotto with the peas and the cheese.
Exactly.
As a side dish
Right.
with some kind of meat or something.
It's the
and
perfect
great.
side dish. Remember, we did that for mom all the time.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah, so you can make it vegetarian, you can make it vegan by leaving out the cheese, it's still delicious.
Yeah.
If you have I have a friend who has a cow's milk allergy, and I can use Pecorino Romano instead of the Parmesan for the sheep's milk. So you can make it vegan, vegetarian, cow-free.
So now, we're waiting for the rest of this to absorb. The peas will go in at the end.
Peas will go in at the
And again,
end.
with peas, I always.
They're frozen, so I didn't get to thaw them, so you can throw them in now.
Well, but the thing with the peas, you don't actually want to cook them, you just
Correct,
want
you
to
want
get.
them to be crisp.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, go ahead. Because we're done, I'm gonna put the cheese in, and this will cool a little bit, and we'll reheat it. And you don't even have to transfer it to another serving dish. I put a big old trivet on the table and just.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this cook. It's probably gonna take another minute or so to get the rest of that liquid.
Yeah, but I'm gonna put the cheese in as well.
Put the cheese in
I'll
now.
put the cheese in now, so were you gonna wait?
No, you put the cheese in.
All right, here. So this is a cup of grated, they had shredded at the store today, but this is, you can use grated or shredded Parmesan. And again, grated Pecorino Romano is fine if you don't want cow's milk. And then this is going to give it that extra creaminess.
And with the Pecorino Romano, it also adds a salt.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's why I didn't put a lot of salt in for a dish of this size.
Right. So now with this, you're just gonna let this cook for another couple minutes till the peas thaw out, till the cheese melts. And once that happens, we're gonna be ready to eat. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. So what's it been, about 40 minutes?
It's been about 40 minutes. We are done.
Everything's incorporated, all the
Everything's
liquids absorbed.
incorporated. And we had just enough time to cook our bone-in
Chicken.
chicken breasts and
Broccoli.
broccoli, which went in halfway through that cook, about 20 minutes.
So with this though, so you used all the liquid.
Yes.
The rice is now tender. And that's the other thing. When you're doing this is one of those things, if you taste it and the rice is still a little bit hard, you may need to add a little more liquid.
Absolutely.
Or maybe the rice absorbed enough and you have a half a cup or 2 cups left, whatever.
And you
gotta
incorporate so much broth and the alcohol, you don't want to ever add up more alcohol at the end. But you can just add water if you need more
Yeah,
liquid.
exactly, exactly. So it's done, right?
More bourbon.
All right, so we're gonna put some,
Fantastic, Joe.
so let's put some in a plate
Okay?
and let's try this puppy.
All right.
See if it's worth all this time.
Behind,
Well, I don't know what.
on the right of the sink.
We're gonna try a little bit of this. So this is bacon, bourbon, risotto with mushroom and peas.
And it's too good.
That's good. So again, with risotto, if you don't like the bacon, you don't want the peas, whatever, risotto in the basic form, which is the rice, the garlic, the shallots,
Cheese.
the olive oil, and the rice, and then you just customize it any way you want. But you've got the basic. So we are getting ready to eat now, as you can see, plating up a plate here. I want to thank Rob for having us in his kitchen, cooking risotto. Please, don't be afraid of risotto. It's
Rick
one of-
built this kitchen.
I did build this kitchen, yes. But I'm not available for hire right now. But don't be afraid to make risotto. It's one of those things people think it's too hard to make. You can make risotto. It's really not that difficult.
Very easy, actually. It's just
Right.
time and
It's just a little time. And while you're sitting around, it's a perfect recipe actually if you have people over and you're all hanging out in the kitchen
And really, your one hand stirring and one hand is free
or whatever.
for whatever.
So again, thank you for watching. Everyday Adventures of Cooking with Rick. Thanks to Rob. Thanks to my son Josh for filming and Heather for being in the audience.
Thank you, audience.
And and we are, please like, subscribe, click, do all the things that I'm supposed to tell you to do on the channel.
He doesn't know how to use the thing.
I don't know how to use the thing. And we'd love to hear comments though. That's one thing I do know. If try the recipe, let us know how it came out. We've got a lot of great recipes coming up. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. You tell me when we're recording.
We've been recording. I did it.
Wow.
Right here, hold on.
Not only a great cook, but she'd love to
Oh,
experiment. You weren't filming?